Let's look at some awesome projects here, okay? So this student did an awesome job, and their animation is very, very fluid, and it's a little bit hard actually for me to preview here too quickly in After Effects for a few reasons. I did want to bring these up. For one, the student put quite a lot of grain on their animation layer, and the grain is moving quite a lot, and for After Effects to have to calculate all those little bits of grain, I think that will really slow down your machine quite a bit. And also, the repeater, like to make this kind of halftone pattern here, is really awesome and useful. However, because there are so many dots here, and he actually has two different layers of all those dots, I think it's also slowing this down for After Effects as well to sort of create and plot out all those dots. So maybe that would have been something you could have pre-rendered that element and then brought it in as a QuickTime movie or something, or even maybe in this case making that an Illustrator. All right, so here we go. We can kind of look at this. Let's look at this as much as we can. So this just has some really nice flow and some really good pauses, and I feel like the speed is very consistent throughout. If we wanted to preview more, I think we'd have to get in here and let's see, figure out where the where that grain is. Here it is. Okay, take that off there, and yeah. The other thing is, I think, for this, if I turn off the background, just for the heck of it for now, and made this like a dark colored background, this would be a little bit easier for us to see. Okay, so let's try that. Okay, see how much faster it's previewing now without the grain and that repeater on there in the background? Okay. So, in any case, I think it's really awesome, and I really love the flow here. I think it's really very nice, and the speed is very consistent. I don't think it's too fast or too slow. So this is a really great job. I just wanted to point out a couple of like tiny little things that I saw here that are a little bit distracting to me. Okay, and it's kind of like right here. Now let me put this back at full res. And so if we kind of go through this animation, you can kind of see there's some like weird movements and stuff that's happening right there. And it doesn't look like the mask in this case was particularly effective. So what I would do is jump back into this pre-comp here, and let's look at that moment again. I guess it's this, and let me put dark background on there and turn this off again. Okay. So let's see. This is... Oh, looks like there's still one more pre-comp I have to jump into here. Okay, great. This is the original pre-comp. Okay. So let's look at this. Yeah, so this is just really, it's a little bit funky there, and let's see, which one is this? This. Okay, cool. So yeah, so now, let's see. Okay, so this is this, yeah, so this makes sense. So there's a lot of mask keyframes going on in here, and we really only need two keyframes. We need one with it in position and one with it off in Siberia with its friends, okay, or off position, right? So I think what I'd do is, I think I would just delete all these, okay, for starters, and then I'd probably go back, let's see, let me take this keyframe here and push it here, okay, because I just think that it's just not a very good mask. Oh, and I see here that, okay, so there's an additional point here. I guess that the student thought that they could kind of like make this way, but I'm going to suggest that you just use Bezier curve. So I'm going to go up here to my pen tool and go to the delete vertex tool, okay? And see there's like a little minus sign there. So if I click on that, I can get rid of that. And now I can go and choose my regular or my convert vertex tool. And if I select this, I can now push this up like that. And now this, I just need to kind of get this so that it looks really smooth. I don't know, something like that. And then now I would push that up to the start, and now when it goes off, it goes off well, right? So just like that, just some small details here. And yeah, I think that looks a little bit better. Yeah, the bottom one's still a little bit funky and has some additional movement in it, but that's the way I would probably do this. So really great job here from this student, and let's look at the next one. Okay, this is another really great project from a student, and I really like a lot of the animation that they have going on here. I think it's really fluid, and I love this background that they put on. It's very complicated, and the colors are fun, and I just think they did a really great job, okay? But I did want to talk about a couple of choices that they made that I think, especially one that I think is pretty unnecessary. All right. So what they did here was they put on a 3D camera and they made all these layers 3D. Okay. And if we look at the camera move, we'll see that the only thing that really happens is that the camera pushes in on the z-axis here. All right. We haven't covered 3D, and we're not really going to get into it too much in this class, just a tiny little bit. But one of the things that I teach is that it's not really necessary to use a camera in most cases. We want to think it is because it's a camera, and we're like, oh, I'll just put a camera in that scene, and then I'll just shoot it through that camera or whatever. But in most cases, it's really not necessary. The camera has some really cool additional options in it, okay, like depth of field and aperture and blur level and stuff. And when I need to use those, that's when I use a camera, because those are the only way, kind of, that you can do this, or this is an interesting way to do this. But other than that, I never use a camera. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, okay? And I'm going to turn all these layers off from being 3D. And I'm going to show you how you can make the exact same move without all the 3D nonsense that is going to slow down your machine and take you longer to do, okay? So basically, if you just make a null object, Shift Option Command Y, right? And then you parent all this stuff to the null, like this, right? We could just scale up this null and it'll do the exact same thing, right? So in this case, that's way easier for After Effects, and it's just kind of a more elegant solution, I feel like. So resist the temptation generally to put 3D cameras on things. They're actually very advanced, and they're kind of kludgy and a little bit annoying to work with, all right? One other thing that I wanted to show here, which I really love, this kind of like shine thing that goes on here. I think, though, it should happen later and, you know, not during the animation, but kind of after it. But nonetheless, so this student used, let's see, yeah. So they used a pretty common plugin called CC Light Sweep to do this, and I think that's a fine plugin. But I kind of developed my own way of doing this that I wanted to show you, which doesn't really involve any kind of like third-party plugins like this, although this comes with After Effects. And I call this the Shiny McShine Shine, by the way, okay? So I'm going to make a new background here. And let me take Awesome 1. Okay, move it in here. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to duplicate that, and I'm going to go Effect, Fill. And I'm going to make that white. Okay? And then I'm going to put a fill effect on the, I keep doing that. On the one that was black as well. And I'm going to just make that something more like, you know, the comp color that we're dealing with here. Okay, so that looks like that, and this looks like that. Now, I do have to put a couple of effects on here. For one, I'm going to put a blur on the white Awesome. So I'll go to Blur, and I'll put like a Gaussian blur on there, and I don't know, I'll put this up something like 6. That's fine, that looks good. Yep. And now what I'm going to do also is take the mode of this and make it screen, okay? And I think that's good. So now what I need to do is go get my pen tool, and I'm going to make an angled mask here, all right? And I'm going to put it over here somewhere, like this. Okay? And that is now cut that completely off. And what I want to do basically is get into my mask controls like M, and actually let me move the mask over so I can demonstrate this more clearly. So right now this is going to look like this when it moves across, which is kind of what we want, but not really, because we want a nice soft, like velvety edge to it. So if we look at our mask settings, I think we talked about mask feather a little bit, but not too much. So what I want to do is, this will feather the edge of the mask, which is exactly what we want. So I'm just going to feather this a whole bunch, you know, and now you can kind of see that it's spreading the mask out over, you know, the white part over the black part, or the light dark blue part. Additionally, I think it'd be cool if I took this dark layer and went to Perspective and Bevel Alpha, okay? And if I get in closer, you can see that let me turn the shine off for 1 sec. You can see that this just kind of like, it just kind of puts a nice little beveled edge onto it, and you don't want to make it too big or too small, right? Beveling edges looks a little cheesy, I think, at times. And now if we put this back on, let me now animate this, and I'll show you my Shiny McShine Shine action, okay? Take my mask path and move it over here, and I will make a mask position by Option M, and then I'll move somewhere, oh, this is really long here, so maybe 3 seconds, and I will take this and move this over and out. And I can also lower the opacity on this a little bit, maybe to like 85. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, so it could put like a really nice, sweet little shine going across some type, and you know, I just call that the Shiny McShine Shine. And you could always like increase the feather or decrease the feather and try to get these settings right. I went rather quickly here, but you can get a really nice shine on stuff by doing that. And you could also mess around with the animation of the mask as well. Like this could start out, oops, being like really small, for example, and then get wider as it goes. This, something like that, right? So you can do a lot of nice stuff with that, and I kind of like it because I made it up myself, right? So there you go, Shiny McShine Shine. Okay, cool. So here we are with our final example, and I think this is a really, really nice, really well-designed piece from this student, and I love all the texturing and the additional animation, you know, this little loop here that he put on. I just think this is really cool. And the student used a lot of like really interesting methods for doing all this texturing and stuff, which I thought was great. They obviously are very advanced when it comes to design and like this texturing and stuff, and even the way they laid it out with all these adjustment layers, I thought it was really nicely done. And this person obviously has some design skills. I did want to talk about one thing about their work though, which was the actual animation itself. So let me see. Here's the awesome animation, I guess. Is that it? Yep. And, oh, this is still a pre-comp. Okay, so let me select all and you. And all right, so yeah, as I suspected here, this animation to me, if we check it out, it's great. It's fluid and stuff, but it's not incredibly fluid. It doesn't have a lot of like slow in and slow out, and it just seems kind of like a little bit linear or a little bit like just very direct, and it doesn't feel totally like a human being is writing it because it's very consistently like the speed is really consistent. So now that we're getting a little bit more advanced and we've talked about you know, interpolation and eases and stuff, I do want you to think about this a little bit, okay? This is, like we said before, this is kind of the finesse part of the animation. So if we look at the A, for example, here with the linear keyframes, it looks like that, and that's very nice. It's fluid or whatever, but it doesn't have a lot of like human movement to it, like I said. So even if I just press F9 right away and put some basic ease on this, okay, it puts that little pause up top and it messes up some of the masks that the student worked so hard on, but I think there's something kind of nice about it. I would probably adjust some of these a little, so take out that pause, and I'll change the masks in a sec so we can see this, but first I would just want to get the timings right. All right, and I think we could even take this and work this a little bit harder in the graph editor here. Okay, so let's see. So what we want is a slow start and a slow end on these things, right? So I think if we just even push this a little bit and then push this a little bit, we can make that a little bit more dynamic. Obviously the masks are totally messed up, but you can see that kind of already. And like, let's see. I think maybe this, if we wanted to get this one right, we might, right now the pause is way too long, and I think what I could do is probably just take that one and push this so that, okay, so it's this, I see. So I just delayed that too much, I think. Have that start sooner, and then maybe come into a more flowing end here. Well, that's probably too exaggerated now. But you can see that, you know, the sort of human feeling that I'm going for here a little bit more. And obviously I want to undo that. And of course you'd want to make all these adjustments first before you do all the masking work, since I'll have to change this around. But just say we like that, okay? Okay, it's got more of a rump feeling to it, okay? So obviously I could get in here now and shovel these masks around and make the timings better on the mask reveals, but I think you know how to do that at this point. I just wanted to point out that the ease makes it feel a little bit more like it's written by a human hand, okay? But great job here, and really great job for all of the students that I talked about. This was some very, very good work that we saw this week, and I'm super psyched. So thank you so much for your hard work.